hell hath no fury like women with a grudge in a pro wrestling locker room. Because as with any men's locker room, personality clashes, perceived slights, and good old-fashioned jealousy have created some very real feuds that have turned ugly and in some cases led to fights and firings. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are 10 notorious backstage women's wrestling rivalries. Join us! Number 10, Sable vs Luna Vashan. During the Attitude Era, the role of women in WWE was clearly changing. There was practically no emphasis on actual wrestling talent, but a strong focus on TNA, thanks in large part to the emergence of Sable. Mark Marrow's then wife got hired alongside the Wild Man primarily due to her looks and was pushed heavily on TV as a sex symbol. Luna Vashan, who as an adopted member of the Vashan wrestling family was brought up in the business the hard way and didn't possess the supermodel looks of Rena Marrow, deeply resented Sable's mega push. She also resented allegedly being warned by Vince McMahon not to make a scratch on Sable prior to their mixed tag match at WrestleMania 14, and then not getting her kudos for carrying her far less experienced opponent afterwards, while Sable was showered with praise. Luna made no secret of the fact that she hated the Playboy cover girl, and both Mark Marrow and Luna's then husband Gangrel had to intervene on various occasions to make sure things didn't turn physical backstage. Luna was ultimately suspended and lost out on a pay-per-view women's championship match after various backstage incidents, including confrontations with Mark Marrow, Jacqueline, and road agent Jack Lanza. Number 9, Dawn Marie vs Francine. When Dawn Marie first showed up in ECW as Tammy Lynn Bitch, everything was fine between her and the so-called Queen of Extreme Francine. However, over time, their relationship began to deteriorate. Why? Well, nobody is exactly sure, but each woman has her side of the story, and it seems to boil down to professional jealousy. Dawn has claimed that Francine would make her life a living hell, to the point that she would go home and cry about the situation once she was off the road. She also said that Francine would refer to her as she, her, and it, even when Dawn was right there next to her. Francine, meanwhile, has denied that she was at all hostile, while asserting that Marie didn't respect the business and would legitimately attempt to hurt her during their catfight pull-apart brawls. The resentment lingered long after ECW had closed its doors, and there was an unpleasant scene between the two of them prior to the first one-night stand pay-per-view, which did neither woman any favors with management. 2 decades on, and I still don't think they're on each other's Christmas card lists. Number 8, Missy Hyatt vs Peaches. The feud between Francine and Dawn Marie was not the first to cause issues in Paul Heyman's promotion mind. A couple of years prior, Missy Hyatt and Laurie Fullington, the wife of the Sandman who went by the name Peaches, had problems that played a major role in Missy opting to leave ECW. According to Missy's autobiography, Laurie accused her of sleeping with her husband and even hit her with a boot on one occasion. Hyatt further stated that Laurie was paranoid that her husband was having an affair, and well, considering how openly promiscuous Missy had been in the past, it was kind of easy to understand that paranoia. Despite Hyatt assuring Laurie that their relationship was strictly professional, especially after Peaches took offense to some close-to-the-bone comments Missy made during a promo, the tension didn't lessen, and Laurie broke Hyatt's elbow by hitting her with an extra stiff cane shot at an ECW house show. Missy had had enough, and when Paul Heyman turned down her request to do commentary work, she quit. The kicker? Hyatt later confessed that she in fact had slept with the Sandman twice in a bid to settle nerves and improve their on-screen chemistry. Number 7, Tiffany Stratton vs Charlotte Flair. God bless Charlotte Flair. Fans might be sick of the incessant push, the routine title wins, and well, her, but there is no denying the Queen is an old-school beefer with a talent for causing shoot drama. And it's Tiffany Stratton who is the latest to experience Charlotte's wily ways. On the March 21st, 2025 edition of SmackDown, the two had a back-and-forth debate via video link to hype their impending WrestleMania showdown. Flair kept cutting Stratton off and basically walked all over her, with most fans saying that she got the better of the exchange. 2 weeks later, however, it was a very different story. This time in front of a live crowd, an in-ring promo segment between the pair went off the rails when they started going off script and making personal comments. Tiffany referenced Charlotte's hat-trick rhetoric of divorces, while Flair, who was clearly rattled by the negative crowd reaction to her, made fun of Stratton's voice and claimed that Tiff's boyfriend Ludwig Kaiser had been in her DMs. Charlotte was reportedly very displeased about the whole thing when she got backstage, though she and Tiffany agreed to put their personal differences to one side and work professionally going forward. Well, for now anyway. Number 6, Chyna versus Stephanie McMahon. During his ascent from the mid-card to main event, Triple H was in a real-life relationship with Joni Laura, aka Chyna. With the ninth wonder of the world no longer a member of D-Generation X, however, Hunter was paired up with Stephanie McMahon on screen in late 1999. Life ended up imitating art, and over time, the game and the billion-dollar princess became romantically involved. Joni discovered the infidelity after finding a love letter Steph had written her one-time fiancé, and understandably was not happy about the situation. And the women's champion threatening to kill the boss's daughter just wasn't going to do it now, was it? Chyna may have been most angry at her ex, but she still harbored a huge grudge against Stephanie, and the strong possibility of the conflict creating a bad working environment was a contributing factor to WWE's decision not to renew Laura's contract, especially after a backstage run-in where she allegedly threatened to choke Stephanie out. Steph, for her part, never publicly disparaged Chyna and did say that she felt her contributions warranted a Hall of Fame induction following Laura's death in 2016. Number 5, Molina versus everyone. It might only be a slight exaggeration to say that former WWE Women's Champion Molina had an issue with every single female performer that walked into the locker room during her WWE tenure. A lot of it is he said, she said, rumor and innuendo, granted, but for the 7 years Molina was on WWE's books, there were reports of prolonged heat or singular incidents with Mickie James, Candice Michelle, Tiffany, Charmel, Maria Kanellis, Brooke Adams, and Lita, to name but 7. Molina's bratty behavior was so bad that at one point she was hauled into wrestlers' court over it during an international tour. Whether you believe reports that she got kicked out of the locker room by Lita or almost got into a fight with Charmel at a house show is really up to you, but there is no questioning that Molina was a total heat magnet during her WWE run, and many of her colleagues haven't had nice things to say about her over the years. Number 4, Awesome Kong versus Rebby Sky. The bad blood between Rebby Sky and Awesome Kong began when Kong participated in a You Shoot Shoot interview and placed Sky in the infamous hoe bag. Kong did so as she felt Rebby was disrespectful, particularly when it came to comments aimed at Sid Vicious after Big Sid resurfaced on an episode of WWE Raw in 2012. Sky took to social media where, among other things, she claimed that Kong had to participate in shoot interviews because she was broke and needed to support a bad drug habit. Things came to a head when both women were working for TNA in 2016. While overseas on a UK tour, Sky and Kong had an alleged altercation in the locker room that resulted in Kong throwing Sky's bags into the hallway. Matt Hardy's wife then went back into the locker room to retrieve items for her young son that had been left inside, but was denied entry, and after reportedly calling Kong an effing maniac, found herself being choked out before security personnel and TNA agent Pat Kenny intervened. The former Knockouts champion was subsequently sent home from the tour and then fired by TNA. Number 3, Tory Wilson versus Sable. Tory Wilson and Sable, who had returned to WWE 4 years after quitting and suing them, citing among other things workplace sexual harassment, had an up and down on-screen relationship, starting off at odds, becoming tag partners and Playboy co-cover girls, and then feuding once again. Behind the scenes, relations between the two started well, but gradually deteriorated to the point that 5 days before they were due to team together at WrestleMania 20, they got into a shouting match at a SmackDown taping. Reports suggested that they were locked in a room screaming at each other for about half an hour, with an incident at a Playboy party both had attended a week prior being cited as the catalyst for the blow-up. John Laurinaitis eventually had to cool things down, but the Blue Brand's roster had already heard all the drama. Sable and Wilson were able to coexist for the next few months, and then Sable once again left the company. Many years later, Tory revealed that Sable had convinced herself that Tory was trying to steal her spotlight. Interestingly, when Wilson was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2019, she was expressly forbidden from mentioning Sable in her speech. Number 2, Becky Lynch versus Charlotte Flair. During the early days of Black and Gold NXT, Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch were very close friends. They, along with the other half of the Four Horsewomen, Sasha Banks and Bayley, were viewed as the performers who were going to take women's wrestling in WWE into the future. After being called up to the main roster, however, Charlotte and Becky drifted apart. There was no known specific incidents, but a competitive rivalry centered around being the very best ensured that they were no longer on the best of terms. Inevitably, this rift played out on screen. During the October 22nd, 2021 edition of SmackDown, Flair and Lynch were involved in a segment that was supposed to see them swap title belts since they were swapping brands. However, in an unplanned moment, Charlotte dropped her belt on the ground, forcing intermediary Sonya Deville to pick it up and hand it to Becky. When the two got backstage, Lynch reportedly confronted Flair, who was escorted from the arena. In an interview shortly after, Becky confirmed that she and Charlotte were no longer friends and that she didn't trust her. Years later, however, tensions had thawed, and while they weren't besties by any means, they had agreed to let bygones be bygones while Charlotte found a new victim to bully. Number 1. Sunny vs. Sable. There had been female wrestlers, managers, and valets before her, but Sunny was arguably the first of what would come to be known as WWE Divas. Tammy Sitch was not only a big fan of the business and a darn good performer, but she was a major sex symbol for the company, becoming AOL's most downloaded celebrity of 1996. In 97, however, Sunny's popularity was surpassed by the newer, bustier blonde bombshell on the scene. Sunny and Sable did not get along, and everybody backstage could see it. Things didn't get any better when Sable accidentally stiffed Sunny during a slap fight either. Sitch has, in the years since, claimed that professional jealousy had nothing to do with it, as they both had different roles to fill on the show. She said she disliked Rena Mero as a person, citing a conversation where Rena allegedly said that she was glad her first husband had died in a car crash as it enabled her to meet Mark Mero. Sable, for her part, has never really commented on the supposed heat. I mean, to be fair, she's married to Brock Lesnar and lives on a farm in Canada. Do you honestly expect her to spill the beans to Rob Feinstein or something?